I can see many people just made their way into the session, so maybe we can slowly start to warm up for the session. So first of all, yet again, a warm welcome to a session of Upright's Net Impact and EU Sustainable Finance program that we've been running during this autumn, as you very well know. Today's topic is about leveraging the Upright platform to concretely navigate both the EU regulation data that we've been discussing throughout the program, and of course the impact space in general, also including what we see as the future of impact measuring and impact managing, i.e. looking at companies' investments through their net impact. So both the pros and cons that a company has in the surrounding world. Looking a bit at the sessions and where we are today, Toni, if you don't mind going the next page. Where are we today? So we got started mid-September by kicking off this program together with some wonderful participants of the program and some guests and friends of ours who are also active in impacting how the global impact market will look like and what the practices will really shape up to be. After that, we had a specific session around the unlisted space. So how to address the EU's demands for investors when it comes to companies that are not listed and don't have any standardized reporting mechanisms in place. After that, in October 19th, we discussed Article 9 classifications specifically. There was a lot of great discussion about whether your fund should be 8 or 9 or 6 even, how that matters, what kinds of concrete implications that has on your reporting requirements, and not only that, but also your ability to market your fund in a favorable way to your stakeholders as well. 2 weeks ago, which was the last session before this one, we then made a little bit of a deep dive to reporting and looking at how 21st century organizations build their impact stories, what kinds of concrete steps does this story have, and how to embed the EU regulatory data to be one part of the story. We all know, and there's been a lot of public discussion, not just in this program, but overall throughout Europe in this during this fall, about the shortcomings of the EU sustainable finance regulations. We all know there are quite some significant handicaps when it comes to, for example, defining the taxonomy, eligibility, and alignment. Last time our CTO Juho went through an example where you could see how different interpretations of the same business could end up in completely different alignment percentages for the same company. So, and of course, for the principal adverse impact indicators, there's also a lot of definitions up for debate whether they actually describe something meaningful for investors or not. Nonetheless, we need to be, or you need to be addressing this regulation, and that's why we are here talking about these topics and trying to help you do it in a as resource efficient and resource smart way as possible. And today is actually a session that you, as the participants of the program, got to choose a topic for. So when we first launched the program, we left the last session, or not the last session, obviously we're looking towards the grand finale in 3 weeks, and when we're having the closing seminar on December 9th. But this last so-called normal session, which is today, we left the topic open for you guys to vote what you would like to hear and what would be pragmatically the most helpful thing for you to have. And you asked us to concretely show how to use the Upright platform that all of you are getting your access to during this fall, how to concretely use it for some of the use cases that are burning on your table right now. And some of the questions that you asked regarding this, thanks Toni for sharing this. Some of the questions that you asked when requesting for this topic was to see what kinds of use cases do asset managers, other asset managers than yourselves, use the Upright platform for, and whether we see any trends in what the platform is concretely being used for. You also asked about us to talk a little bit around the phase in the investment process that the Upright platform is typically used for. Is it before the investment decision is made, after it, or both? And as many of you know, it's both. And Toni will very briefly go into a full demo to show what this means in practice. You also asked a lot about how to use the platform to drive change in your portfolio companies. So not just to see that, hey, this company is good or bad, but to see how this kind of data can also be used as a fact-based platform for a discussion with your portfolio companies about the improvement steps that they are about to take or they should be taking in their own business. You also had a lot of great questions about access to the product info level. So many of you have been interested in seeing that. Maybe unlike in some other systems where you only get a bit of a ESG rating that might be a bit of a black box, you can actually access the product info. So see what are the concrete differences in the core business of, let's say, 4 peers, and what those differences, what kinds of impact implications those differences are driving. So we'll also be looking at that more closely in the demo. Also, some questions about how you can bring this data to your own systems, how you can take it out of the platform and use it through the API, or just simply export it to a spreadsheet. And also, you asked a little bit about what all of this will look like in 2024 or a couple of years down the line, when these impact practices might have become a little bit more established than they are today. So these are some of the topics that we're trying to cover in our agenda today. And we've actually structured this session to take the form of a couple of different steps. Yeah, Toni, you can go to the next page. So we decided that we would go through 3 typical use cases that investors typically use the platform for. And please note that we're now talking about investors. Obviously, these demos are also relevant if you're representing a company, because what investors look at are typically companies like yourselves. But this is now this question is now formed from the perspective of investors, since most of you that enrolled for this session are in fact asset managers yourselves. So the first concrete use case, to be as sort of pragmatic as possible, is the use case where you want to holistically look at one individual company and make a proper impact assessment on that company. So you might want to be looking at it through different kinds of lenses. And many of you are struggling with this problem that, hey, if I look at this company through its own impact reporting, compared to, for example, the EU regulatory data or the taxonomy data, they look completely different. So the EU taxonomy is saying that this company has no impact on climate change whatsoever, whereas this company is talking a lot about impact that sound really concrete and material to me about how they are impacting various topics, and one of them being climate change as well. So this is really a topic that we think is one of the major things that needs to be fixed in the global impact discourse in the coming years. And we also are pretty hopeful in terms of certain pressures pressuring towards this way. So really looking at one consistent story through different data lenses and putting those data in context where they should be. So not expecting the EU taxonomy to solve problems that it can't solve, not expecting the PI indicators to solve or answer questions that they are not designed to answer. And really understanding what drives impact in a company's core business. So not just looking at, hey, it looks like this is a pretty health positive company, but really understanding, and as I said, Toni will do a demo in just a few minutes on this, but really to show what are the products, what are the business lines, the businesses inside a company that are driving the differences compared to, for example, a peer company that you might be looking next to it. The second typical use case is then obviously taking the perspective of a fund. So not just of an individual company, but a group of companies or a product that you are actively managing, and actively looking at that company's impact profile. That means a bunch of different things, and Tuukka will show a demo right after Toni's demo on this one. So really looking at whether it's before the investment decision, you want to perhaps screen companies using multiple different factors, You might be looking at geographical or industry screening factors, and you might also want to look at impact already at the phase of screening and looking at a wide space of companies. Obviously, you want to see what it looks like through the lenses of different stakeholders, and you want to find the improvement potential. Not just see that, hey, this company, this is where it is right now, but find and improve and address the points that can be improved in the company's impact. And that's also one of the use cases that we've designed the platform for. And finally, thirdly, as no surprise probably to anyone in this session, one of the major use cases that investors are currently using the Upright platform for is addressing the new EU regulatory requirements. So concretely finding your EU taxonomy and the principal adverse impacts data, and concretely forming the reporting outputs that you need to be forming. So these are the three use cases that we will structure today's session around. And as our first, and we actually structured the session to be around two quite extensive demos, because we want to be as concrete as possible and spend as little time as possible on these PowerPoint slides and more time really looking at how the Upright platform can be used to navigate and answer these questions. So first, we're going to start with a demo looking at one individual company, seeing what its impact looks like and what are all the different types of analysis that asset managers are able to do for an individual company in the Upright platform. And I'm going to give the floor to a man you all know very well. So this programs manager and Upright's COO, Toni Laitila. So Toni, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Annu. Thank you for the introduction. Really glad to be here today. So as Annu mentioned here, we are going to start with an individual company impact assessment. And I'm going to show you both a listed company example and unlisted company example, because I know there's asset managers from both type of companies here in the program and in today's session. So what we've done, I'm not sure if there's any background noise. Hopefully you can hear me well. So what we have here is the Upright's net impact platform, and here we are looking at the profile of Siemens. As you might know, I'm sorry, can you hear me well? Because there's someone doing renovation right outside my room. So if you can hear me well, I'm gonna just continue.
I can hear you well, Toni.
Yeah,
okay.
We can hear you just okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Then I'm not gonna burden you with that anymore. So yes, great. So now we are looking at the Siemens profile with the idea to do this impact assessment as a fund manager. So you all know Siemens. It's this German conglomerate. It's also one of the largest industrial manufacturing companies in Europe. And as an asset manager or a portfolio manager, you of course first want to understand the overview of what's the impact of this company. So first, as you can see here, you can see the net impact profile of Siemens. So you instantly get the sense of what's the shape of the company, what are the major positive impacts. At the same time, where does this company use resources? And what you can see here is that there's plenty of positive impacts across these different categories, but also use of resources in terms of scarce human capital, so highly educated, scarcely available human capital, but also some greenhouse gas emissions and waste costs and so on. But this is nice. So you can get the kind of overview here. But as a portfolio manager, you really want to understand what is driving the impact. So it's just not this type of black box where you get this impact profile. Rather, you get to go one step further to understand what businesses are driving different impacts. Something to highlight here is the significant positive contribution on society. And here we could take societal infrastructure as the first example. if we now drill down to this societal infrastructure category, we can see that what concrete products and services of Siemens portfolio are driving the impact. We can instantly see that, okay, the major drivers here are the public transportation solutions that they offer, like metros and trams and trains and all types of different types of systems around that. So it's a lot about providing the public transportation, but also on the renewable energy side as well. So that's on the societal infrastructure side. But then we also noticed that, okay, we are looking at the industrial manufacturing company, and they have a significant positive impact on treating and preventing physical diseases. What is driving this one? Here, if we again drill down to this category, we can see that, okay, Siemens is actually producing different types of healthcare technologies like MRI machines and CT scanners and so on. And this is all part of their Healthineers subsidiary that is providing these products and services. And it's actually quite a major business for them. And as you can see here, multiple different products that actually then contribute quite positively to treating and preventing physical diseases. What this boils down to is that what's the key takeaway from this profile is that even if you're this kind of conglomerate doing all kinds of different businesses, it's all about where do you utilize the technology and what do you achieve with the products and service you offer, whether it's the public transportation and contributing to modern society, or whether it's about treating and preventing diseases. And that shows in the impact profile here. So that's kind of the first step of understanding first the big picture, and then drilling down to any of the categories you'd like to understand better what is driving the impact. Then, as a second step, you often want to, as an investment manager or portfolio manager, you want to compare the company you are assessing to its peers. So how does it compare to similar type of companies, which you also might be considering adding to your portfolio, for instance? And here we have taken General Electric as a comparison to Siemens. So this might be another company that you could be considering adding to your portfolio in this case. So now we can see that in the first view, as we are comparing Siemens and GE, we can see that, okay, their profiles are quite similar. They have a lot of similarities in terms of impact when we are looking at these profiles, but you can also see a couple of differences that are quite interesting to drill down into. So first off, we can notice a difference on the society category, and especially on the negative side, so negative impact on societal stability. And here, if we now drill down to the negative impact on societal stability on General Electric's profile, we can actually instantly identify that, okay, it seems that as its core business, General Electric is also providing different types of solutions for military. And that shows as a negative contribution here on the society category. And this was something that was completely missing from the Siemens profile. So that is instantly one of the first differences that you can identify between the profiles. The second one, at least I noticed here, is the difference in the environment category. So you can see that GE actually has a higher positive contribution to greenhouse gas emissions, so removing or reducing emissions. If we want to understand this further, we can again drill down in this case to General Electric's profile and see that, okay, it's being driven by their large renewable energy business units and their different types of technologies for wind powered electricity. And this is something that is quite a bit larger than in the Siemens case, again showing a difference in the profile. Okay, but those are a couple of the key differences in the profiles. Something I still like to highlight here is that we can see differences even if the impact profiles are similar. As you remember, in case of Siemens, the positive impact on societal infrastructure, it was all about the public transport, also some of the technologies about energy production. But in General Electric's case, if we go and drill down to the let me see if I click the correct one here. So drill down to the societal infrastructure category. We can see that what type of products and services are contributing here. And for them, it's much about these renewable energy solutions, as mentioned earlier, but they also do a lot of this type of cybersecurity management solutions and services. So it's a totally different types of product set that is still contributing positively to the societal infrastructure.
Yeah, this is sorry, Toni, for jumping in.
No
but
worries.
This is one of the things that in many of our discussions, many of you asked about the concrete situations where this data is being used, and this is actually the kind of drill down that we use quite a bit when looking at concrete situations that investors are facing. It's not just relevant to understand whether a rating based on certain assumptions, for example, used in the upright model right now says X or Y, but rather to understand what kinds of businesses and industries are driving this, because obviously as an investor you need to also, you're putting a lot of other assumptions at play. You are maybe believing in the growth or no growth in the cybersecurity market. You're maybe looking at the renewable energy not only contributing to societal infrastructure, but also perhaps looking at certain regulatory factors that may or may not be more favorable to that sector coming forward. So these are also factors that materially impact the company's ability to financially perform well, and they are often linked to many of the other things that you are tracking as well. So that's why it's always important not just to look at, hey, the rating looks nice, but really to understand which businesses and which types of products and services are driving it, to give it your own kind of like sort of more deeper understanding of where the impact differences come from. And obviously we also do a lot of analysis then if you want to go even further, where we apply certain market trends to these, and we can see how it looks like for the company going forward. But this was just as one example that Toni was walking through of the situations that we use the data for.
Really good. Thank you for adding that, Annu, a good example. So here, now that we've been doing this comparison against Siemens and General Electric, something to also mention here that these companies have been making this type of strategic moves to also move their net impact to a more positive direction. For instance, General Electric used to have this large oil and gas business, which they now have divested from. So their environmental scores are looking better than they used to look like still a couple of years ago, and that can be seen in the profile here. But these were just two examples. We could also let me see if I can Electric. We can also add some other companies here, like Schneider Electric, a comparable company from Europe, or we might want to compare this Europe. We could also compare it to its benchmark index here as well. So as you might know, Siemens is part of S&P Europe 350. And you can here put the company in the context of, well, large European companies. And you can instantly see differences on the environmental footprint side, also on the negative impact on health. So often when you're looking at individual companies, it's useful to also put it in the context of its benchmark index, or whatever index you might be using for your fund, for instance. Great, but that's on the net impact side on individual listed company that we've been looking at now. Next, it's not really this only. So now that we have looked at the net impact side, let's also take a look on the regulatory data side as well. So here we are looking now at the EU taxonomy data of Siemens. So instantly, what we can see here is the eligibility percentages, both against the climate change mitigation and adaptation, but then also the estimated alignment percentages, against these two objectives and the total alignment and total eligibility. Something to note here as well, as a fund manager, you might want to understand also what part of it is about these enabling activities, which part is about these transitional activities. In addition, and again, going a step further, you might want to understand what are the actual products and service, the economic activities as disclosed by the EU taxonomy regulation that this company is doing as its core business. So you can actually go to this economic activity level, see the according NASE codes and so on here, just to understand a bit better on how does the EU taxonomy eligibility and alignment look like. Yeah, in this case, as you can see here, there's the economic activities. You can also see the linkage to the actual products and services the companies producing or selling. We could do the same thing for General Electric as well. So now that we are looking at the EU taxonomy, we might want to compare it to General Electric as well. So we can take the same data from here as well. What we can instantly see is that the overall EU taxonomy percentages, especially the eligibility is lower, also the alignment is lower. At this point, if you're making the investment decisions, this is most likely not really driving your decisions, and you might not be using this information too much on making the actual decisions. But it's important to understand the implications when you are reporting about the impact of this company or your fund, which this company would be part of, to also understand how is this company affecting your EU taxonomy alignment or eligibility. So that's why it might be interesting to also do this as a part of your impact assessment for individual company. Great. But this was two companies on the EU taxonomy side. We might want to do this also for the larger context as well. So I open up here the S&P Europe 350, and for them, we can also take a look at their whole list of companies and their EU taxonomy percentages. So I think we can find Siemens here as part of the list. You can see the percentages here. You can also see all of the other companies within this index here, right on the UI. But as you are at this point quite familiar probably quite familiar with the regulation. The regulation has two parts. So both the EU taxonomy side and then the SFDR principal adverse impact side as well. So with the Upright platform, you can of course download the full data of the taxonomy for all of these companies within this index, for instance here. But you can also take this data directly from the API and at the same time get the principal adverse impacts data for the whole list of companies as well. So now what I've done here, I've opened up the list of companies within the S&P Europe 350, which Siemens is part of, and their principal adverse impacts data, but also the EU taxonomy data as discussed earlier. So this is just to showcase that oftentimes when you're assessing a company, you want to put it in the context in terms of net impact, but maybe also in terms of the regulatory data as well. So let's take Siemens here. We can see their profile in this row next to Electrolux and Heineken and Stora Enso, for instance, in this case. The point of showing this data is not so that please read all of these metrics right now, but just to understand how you could look at this data and how you maybe should look at kind of the larger context as well, rather than only the company itself. But yes, this was on the EU taxonomy side, bit on the principal adverse impact side. Maybe to give a bit more flavor before jumping into your questions to the principal adverse impact side. So as you might remember from our past sessions, you can also see the principal adverse impact data directly from the Upright platform. Here, a couple of notes in terms of the data itself, and maybe on the greenhouse gas emissions side, in case of Siemens. As always, it's the scope 3 emissions that is really driving the impact. So what are these services being used for? How does the supply chain look like? So that's always something important to take into account. And secondly, more on this kind of data source point is, as you might remember, we are gathering both the company disclosures, like what Siemens themselves have said, but we are also producing upright modeled estimates in cases there are no disclosures available. That is the way we are able to, for instance, have all of the metrics for all of the companies within Upright's universe here. So you don't have these data gaps and you don't have to make decisions, even if it's about regulation, with this type of limited information in this case. Great, but that's on the principal adverse impacts data in this case. Maybe as the last step, when you are making the impact assessment for a listed companies, in this case, you might want to take a look at the UN SDG alignment as well. So if you're not familiar with the data, we have also launched this UN SDG revenue alignment data. So you can see how well the company's core business is aligned or misaligned with different UN SDG goals and targets. And here you can instantly see that, not surprisingly, that they are contributing to, for instance, good health and well-being, and also industry innovation and infrastructure as well. You can also see some small misalignment here. The key use case for this data, when you're looking at individual company, might be so that for your fund that you are managing, you might have some UN SDG goals set as a targets for your fund or in your marketing materials. You might want to understand, how does this company align with the targets I have set or the marketing materials I have mentioned earlier. So you are also aware of the alignment or misalignment in that case. So even if this data wouldn't be used for investment decisions per se, or to understand the risk return profile, it still might be useful to take a look at. Next, what I was thinking of was to show the same type of but shorter version of this assessment for an unlisted company. But I see that there has been a lot of discussion in the chat. I don't know, Annu, is there any questions we should address?
While you've been having this great demo, we've actually been having a great discussion with Mark, who's the head of impact at Lightrock, about a really good question that Mark brought up. And even though we actually already clarified that a little bit in the chat, I think this is actually a really crucial thing about net impact that I would at least love to clarify for everybody in the session. Thanks, Mark, for bringing it up. So Mark had a great question about understanding whether a product that is net negative, is it possible that it's still contributing positively in some of when you're looking at a certain dimension of impact? And since this is such a crucial thing to the net impact philosophy, and also what we think is the next step in the global impact discussion as well, not just to see companies or products as only wholly bad or only totally good, but really to understand the different dimensions and the categories of impact, among which we need to be making trade-offs and decisions as investors and well, as companies and business leaders and whatnot. Do you, Tony, mind? I know this wasn't on your agenda. Do you mind just like going the search and just showing, for example, let's take tobacco products, or let's take a tobacco product, for example, there. Like tobacco products, for example, there. Yeah, exactly. This is a cliched enough example that everybody understands, and we don't have to start negotiating about the impacts. So if you just look at the whole, like the whole picture of a tobacco product. So everybody, probably no one is super surprised to see that the product is net negative when you look at the holistic score for the company being here minus something really big. However, even as the sort of one of the most evil products in the world, tobacco companies do have a lot of, or tobacco products in this sense, do have some positive impacts as well. In this case, taxes. So we all know that tobacco in many countries is taxed pretty heavily. And of course, there's also the income tax for the workers and so on. So there could be a fund whose taxes or society dimension could be positively impacted by a tobacco company. And why am I bringing this up? To boost tobacco companies' feelings? Not at all. I'm not endorsing anyone to invest in tobacco, but just to really understand the level of rigor and analytical mindset that we need to be taking when looking at companies, and not just making the previous steps of ESG or impact was more about making one bucket of good companies, another bucket of bad companies, and then as a good investor you could only cherry pick from the nice buckets. As you all know, as smart investors and business leaders, the world is not as black and white. And that is actually one of my main concerns with the EU taxonomy, because it essentially follows somewhat of a similar naive idea that you can just divide products into categories, ones that are helping the world do something and ones that are not. But let's not go into that debate deeper. But this is really, really important for us as sort of intellectual honesty in building the upright model, that we show the positive. In this case, tobacco doesn't really get out of jail with its taxes contribution when it look at the net, but still to understand that there are positive and negative impacts for every single company, every single product in the world. Okay, rant over. This was just a meat rant. Thanks to Mark's great question. But yeah, Toni, you were about to go in another example of a unlisted company, because I think there are a lot of folks online who are questioning that, yeah, hey, this might be really easy for Siemens. Like, Toni, you get a lot of information on Siemens online and they report like hell. So how might this look like for an unlisted company that is not doing as rigorous reporting as Siemens is? So you were about to take that challenge next.
Yes. Thank you, Annu, and thank you, Mark, for the great activity. Please keep the questions coming. We really appreciate them. So yes, as Annu mentioned, let's have a quick look on how could this type of impact assessment look for an unlisted company. So here we took an example of Halton. It's this company that creates this type of indoor environment products, but this type of air conditioning and airflow management systems for instance, for different types of use cases in different types of buildings. So it's this SME company here from Finland, but in essence, they are producing this type of airflow management systems and air conditioning for different types of use cases. As a first step, as an investment manager, for instance, on a private equity company, you want to understand the shape of a company in a similar fashion. And again, you want to understand what is driving the impact of these different categories. So again, we can see positive impact here on the society side. It is not a surprise that this type of smaller unlisted companies contributes significantly to tax and jobs. That might be something to take into account. Also other positive impacts on societal side, but also using environmental resources quite a bit. So if we again want to understand what is driving this impact, do I identify some risks here? So on the positive side, on societal infrastructure, we can see, for instance, building ventilation system for offices or merchant ships contributing quite positively here. So enabling people to work where they want to work. On the other hand, you can see negative impact on treating and preventing physical diseases. And here you can actually see drill down on these professional kitchens and professional kitchen ventilation systems for fast food restaurants, for instance. So as part of their business, they are offering their products to fast food restaurants to enable, making whether it's McDonald's or some other type of company doing their products. And lastly, we can also see the greenhouse gas emissions side here. Of course, operating their systems, of course, might cause some emissions as such, but they also produce provide these services and their fire safety equipment, for instance, or fossil fuel oil rigs. So that is also one use case for the technology that Halton seems to have. So now, what I've taken as an investment manager here, considering Halton, I've noticed like a couple of key things. The first one is that the impact is mainly driven by what type of companies does Halton enable, and where does it provide its products and services? Of which parts of value chains, or which value chains is Halton contributing to? And these are the type of companies where you could also see easy, but potential for transformation as well. Like, okay, as Halton, we want to contribute more to our business, to providing these solutions to, for instance, hospital operating rooms or corporate offices or so on, rather than oil rigs or fast food restaurants, for instance. But yeah, you can see this from the net impact analysis. So again, understanding the underlying impact drivers, it's maybe even more important than only understanding the shape of a company itself. Then again, you can take a look at the regulatory metrics for this company, in this case EU taxonomy data, but also the SFDR principal adverse impacts data, so you understand how does it fit into your own portfolio or fund that you are looking to build. Yeah, so in essence, the storyline is really similar, whether it's a listed or unlisted company. The methodology is the same. So in this case, this was here to highlight that even if you're a private equity or venture capital investor, it might make sense to make this type of impact assessments, and just to show you how it could be done. Yeah, but that's on the platform side when we are looking at individual company impact assessments. I'm not sure if we have any additional questions or comments from the audience at this point before we move into the context of a fund.
No more questions at this point. Everybody is just in awe of your amazing demo. So that was so comprehensive that you answered all the questions. No, just kidding. Please keep the questions coming. We are so happy to answer all of them. Nothing is too small or detailed or whatnot to ask. So don't hesitate to share your questions. But next, now, as Toni said, that was the viewpoint of an individual company, both from a listed global company and then a smaller unlisted company here from the Nordics. And next, of course, is then the question of how does all of this look like when you are looking at it from the perspective of a fund? So you are not just having the luxury to deep dive to one company for quite some time and to compare it to its peers, but you are rather trying to understand your fund holistically, how to improve it, how to make business-friendly and smart impact decisions. So not just being naive that, hey, this has bad impact, let's kick it out and let's take something greener in, but really to look at the sort of complex and not so black and white decisions that you all are facing, and to understand how the upright platform can be used in those situations to understand the macro picture. So pulling together the data, weighing it with the relevant business indicators, and to really not just looking at highlighting things that you might like to see, but really looking at the macro level perspective to your fund and comparing it obviously to other funds and indexes and so on as well. So now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Tuukka Yrttimaa, who's leading a lot of our operations when it comes to developing our platform for our asset manager users. So Tuukka will take you on a little walk in the Upright platform to show how the platform can be used from the viewpoint of a fund. So Tuukka, please, the stage is yours.
Thanks a lot, Annu, and pleasure to continue and walk you through a fund example. And yeah, let's spend the next 20 minutes or so with Swedbank's fund, which we have been selected here as an example. So that is like the fund we see here. We are looking it through fund managers' lenses now. And as an context, like this specific Rubber Transition Global is one of the most ambitious funds for like Swedbank's what comes to the sustainability targets. And as a background, I think this fund has the highest MSCI ESG rating of 3 A's and is actually classified as an Article 8 fund. So yeah, like we see, it doesn't it also has a good net impact ratio, but as always, could do even better. So let's dig deeper into the holistic view of impacts in this fund perspective. And as Toni already walked you through the net impact graph of a company, and now when we look at the same profile on an aggregated fund level, we can see that there is again some negative and some positive impacts. And in the fund's case, these are driven, of course, by the companies that this fund is includes. If we look first the negative impacts, we can see some negative environmental impacts, and let's not go into any too many drill downs this time. I did my homework, and I know that majority of these GHG emissions, like it said already, also here in the key takeaways, are due to the companies, for example, like Sika and Croda, which are actually producing chemicals for industries like oil and gas, also construction and other industrial processes. So that is why we see some negative environmental impacts here, and then also pretty large negative impact on the scarce human capital, which is like the same case that already Toni went through. So companies like Microsoft, Alphabet, and let's say Accenture, which are all in this fund, are using a highly educated workforce, and that is the fact that we see the some negative impact on the knowledge side too. Then on the physical diseases side, there are quite many large pharma companies driving the positive impact on physical diseases. But as a fund manager, one category is especially interesting for me, since the whole fund is actually trying to drive this transition in especially energy industry. So let's get a bit deeper in the societal infrastructure, and what is actually quite interesting from the net impact point of view. We can see that there are not only energy companies in this listing, but also companies like MasterCard, which is the payment infrastructure, and also companies like WSSP Global, which is actually related to built environment and railways and so on. So interesting to understand that actually there are multiple of different companies driving this societal infrastructure impact. And one more thing to mention is that from the more traditional ESG lenses, like Vestas and Ørsted, I think those gain AAA class through MSCI rating, whereas MasterCard has only 1A. So it's also good to understand that through the net impact lenses, we see some pretty exciting companies topping the list. So then, if we move forward for fund managers, getting your fund into the context is of course important. And for the Swedbank's fund, I picked really commonly and well-known index, MSCI World, to compare with. And if we just take a first look to these two profiles, we see that those remains or are quite similar. at least in the society and knowledge impacts. But then we can see like at least some differences, for example, in the health dimension. And for example, the physical diseases minus for the MSCI World Index, it's driven by the tobacco and fast food companies. It includes, and so it makes sense that there are like some larger negative impacts. But then on the environment category, what is actually quite interesting, or at least I find it interesting, is that even though there are like some oil and gas companies in the MSCI World Index, there are also large technology companies like Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft, who are also driving the like large GHG emission. Let's see if our driving the large GHG emission impacts. So even though the GHG emission minus is quite small, or the relative negative company score for these technology companies are quite small for those technology companies, their huge market cap makes those like okay now. So as you can see,
there's a classic demo effect that are whenever we are streaming to larger audiences, there's something funny going on in our offices Wi-Fi. So please bear with us for a moment once Tuukka's computer gets to show the data he's looking for.
So yes, thanks Annu for filling the gap. So like here we can see that even though these large technology companies has a quite small negative impact on the GHG emissions, they are involved in value chains that actually does have a negative effect on environment, and in this case GHG emissions. So they actually gain some impact from those value chains, and then like those usual suspects of ExxonMobil and so on. Okay, but let's continue. So that was like about giving some context by like comparing the fund to another like benchmark index. But then next thing is like it's actually good to understand like how what is the progress over time. And if I as a fund manager like update my fund regularly to our platform, we can see the time series. Like how does actually the net impact profile of my fund progress once we get like new companies and do like reallocations. And for example, between 2019 Q3 and the first quarter of 2020, I think there is at least one company added. So the Hannon Armstrong, which is a company which is like related to renewable energies and other areas of sustainable infrastructure markets. So that is at least one reason why the net impact ratio of this specific fund got like a bit up between those data or two different time series.
And maybe, sorry, Tuukka, if you don't mind, just to add, maybe like looking at the use case that this is typically used for is, of course, well, here in hindsight, we might look and track back that, okay, there between Q3 2019 and Q1 2020, there was a bit of a small 2 percentage point increase in the net impact, and we can trace it back to the adding of the renewable energy company and so on. But of course, the more interesting, not just backward looking, but the more interesting lens through which this is often looked at is by doing different kinds of scenarios. So looking as a fund manager and seeing that, hey, if we were to add these companies to our portfolio or this fund, if we were to at some point let go of these, how would that impact our holistic impact profile? How would that impact our reaching of the targets that we have set for ourselves, and so on. So this is why the tracking it in time is important, and this is how it's typically used. But please, Tuukka, go on.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, exactly so. Okay, then if we move forward, Toni already like showed you an example of EU taxonomy eligibility in case of a company, but of course, when we are like inspecting the fund level, we can also like see how does the fund and those holdings like how those see through the EU taxonomy lenses. And yeah, the total eligibility seems to be 24%, and then as it's like more than I think familiar to all of you, we can see like a lot of different eligibility percentages, and still like many of those businesses, for example, pharma companies that are like with quite high net impact ratio outside of the taxonomy. But anyways, we can go through the EU taxonomy data of my fund, and as Tony already mentioned, it can be downloaded in CSV format straight through our platform. But then the principal adverse impact data, if we want to look even deeper for a fund manager, it's of course possible to use our API and make a request and extract the data of the fund we are looking here at. So in this case, the Swedbank's Robur Transition Global, we can see all the available principal adverse impact metrics for all the companies in the fund, and do like any analysis we want. Probably it's not necessary to go any deeper into these metrics right now, but please know that this is like available. And not only the data for the companies that you have within your funds, but also it's possible to extract and request the data for the whole universe that you have access with your own company. So this is an example of a larger batch of principal adverse impacts and some taxonomy data. And in this case, we are like, yeah, in case you want to screen a larger patch of companies, you are making your investment decisions or whatever, you can like go through like all the available companies. And now you are looking at the actually a universe of over 14,000 companies, and this is something we are currently preparing for our investor clients. But anyways, this might be of interest to any fund manager interested in the EU regulation and the taxonomy. All right. So if not going any deeper into the regulatory data itself, one more thing to mention what comes to the like holistic full picture of impact creation of a fund. Similarly to the company level, we can see the UN SDG contribution for a whole fund. And what is like I would say really like interesting here is that even though you are not like making your investment decisions through like SDGs or any like metrics derived from those, you can use these to, for example, sanity checking or communications materials. So in the Swedbank's case, you can see, for example, like which companies are driving which SDGs. So for example, the industry, innovation and infrastructure goal, there are these like energy companies which are within the renewable electricity production field, contributing mostly this specific SDG.
And again, Tuukka, if you don't mind me just adding, why we have added this feature here and how we think it actually contributes to the investment manager's process is a couple of things. First of all, is to just sanity check, you know, what these companies are saying themselves. They might be marketing themselves impact-wise, using some of the SDGs, just to see whether it's big or not, whether it even moves the needle in your fund. because not just to because you would personally want to somehow comment on their targets or on their marketing, but because this is what then others might be looking at your fund via. So you don't want to end up looking like a fool and just taking everything at face value. You might rather want to understand how big is it. And the second is to always not just look at it as a binary attribute to a company. So we are contributing to SDG number X or something like that, but rather you have to look one process deeper. And that's why we build this data on a product level. So it's not just a 100% of alignment or not alignment for Siemens for SDG X, but rather looking at the products and services that Siemens is doing, seeing which one of them are actually aligned with the SDGs, are contributing to the SDGs negatively or positively, and going through that layer of data. So that's what these are the couple of like things in which we want to make also the SDG discussion more robust when looking at a fund. Yeah. So sorry, Tuukka, please go on.
No, of course. And now when we have like finally like gone through all these impact metrics available through our platform, me as a fund manager, I think I have a, like really like quite a good understanding of the impact of my fund and like what actually drives the impact of my fund. And as a last demo, I would like to show you like the case that if I decide, for example, to create a scenario to understand how would, for example, a greater emphasis on renewable energy affects my like impact of my fund. So if we want to get a like, I'm just going to play through like what I like do next. So I would duplicate my initial or original portfolio, and after that I have named the scenario A for this play, and currently the impact profile looks exactly the same as what we took a look a few minutes ago. But then if we look at the companies in the fund, we can like, okay, first I start by like looking the total funds invested. So because like I don't want to make any like new investments in that sense or increase the amount of total funds invested. But instead, I would like to add the weighting of a few companies that are concentrating on the renewables. And here I would say like three companies, and let's take like just three of those. I know that at least Hannon Armstrong, they are having operations within that field. So let's make that, for example, 1.5x the original weight, so 2.7. And I will lock that so that won't change anymore. Then Vestas is also a really good example in this field, so making it also 1.5 times the original weight. And then one more, okay, like for example, Ørsted, they are also within the same field, so increasing also that one a bit. So 1.5 times the original weight, like the two previous ones. And yes, I think some changes have already happened for the net impact ratio and the total performance of the fund. But then I would like to add one more company. I know that my fund includes some companies concentrated on the solar energy. But I know like one good example from the European energy scene would be a great fit to my fund. So I'll add Scatec Solar to this fund, and let's put, let's say, some 15 million USDs to that one. Okay, then we will need to wait a second. Then that our like model is calculating all the weights. And once it's ready, I think it's a few more seconds more.
You have to come up with a nice poem that you recite every time there's a demo effect in one of your demos. Or maybe a solar technology related joke or something like that.
Okay, I think of course I prepare that I have like, okay, now it's ready. It's ready. So great. Here we can see that actually the net impact profile got 3% up. We can also just a second, so we can see it also from the track section. And instead of only looking the net impact ratio, I think we can also see the EU taxonomy eligibility. And yeah, it also increases some 5% from the last or the original fund. And comparing those two, I think we have it here. So the scenario A I just created, it's doing better in terms of like society. Okay, let's take the MSCI world away from the comparison though, so it doesn't get messed up. So for example, in the societal infrastructure, the fund is now gaining a bit more impact, and also in the environment section, the dimension, we see some more positive impact on the GHG emissions. So this was an example of creating a scenario and understanding how does those like reallocations and new investments affect the impact of the fund. And of course you can play more with these, but this was everything I prepared for the fund demo. Please, if you have any questions, we are happy to go those through.
Thanks, Tuukka. Thanks a lot, and thank you, audience, for bearing us with a bit of a demo effect there. Just to clarify this, what this feature is all about and what our vision here is. So obviously, when working as investment managers, it's crucial to be able to play around different kind of scenarios, see in real time what kind of changes actually happen in the data when you do some of the changes, and be able to be very sort of fast and digital with understanding not just that this might look good since this company has a good reputation, but rather understanding what is big and what is not. So what we are working hard on building right now was something that Tuukka was now showing a bit of a beta version on, but it's basically an as effortless as possible way to build a lot of these scenarios, bring those together with some investment discussions, maybe discussing them internally with or with your clients and so on, but just to build an understanding of where funds could go and what kinds of decisions would that take to get some concreteness around, and not just have a black box of cook up some numbers and then you see it afterwards and be like, okay, this is what came out, but rather be able to see it proactively by yourself. Cool. Maybe a couple of words to wrap up in terms of what we then address, or how we address the EU requirements for Article 8 and 9. Like Toni and Tuukka were just showing. Maybe Toni, would you like to just summarize once more in one format of how these different requirements can be addressed using the Upright platform?
Yeah, happy to. Thank you to both of you. I thought that just recapping on how do we actually help with the Upright platform, our clients and fund managers to actually meet the regulation. So kind of summing up what me and Tuukka just showed earlier, we showed the data. Now we're gonna just break it down on how we are actually helping and where can we help with the disclosure requirements. So now taking the fund example Tuukka ran through, an Article 8 fund, we can just highlight here how we can help with the disclosure requirements. So on the left-hand side, first, you have to explain which sustainability indicator is used to measure the attainment of sustainable investment objective or the environmental or social characteristics. And then you also need to report the kind of the performance of that indicator. And in terms of how we can help, there's threefold answer basically to this. First off, we provide these comprehensive net impact metrics, which can be used as fund sustainability indicators. indicator. We know from multiple examples where net impact ratio itself have been used, but you could also use some of the subcategories in that sense. And then, of course, the EU taxonomy, the UN SDG metrics, the principal adverse impact metrics can be used as supporting indicators. And then lastly, we also provide templates that help you explain the use of net impact as a sustainability indicator as part of the pre-contractual disclosures. So if it might not be that familiar with some of the stakeholders you are discussing with, we can help with that with the template. Then third requirement is to explain the binding elements that are used to select the investments. For that, we provide a template for specifying the binding elements related to net impact or the other metrics provided by us. Then there's the requirement to explain how the fund's sustainable investment do not significantly harm any sustainable objective. So of course, as you already know at this point, we provide the principal adverse impact metric, the mandatory ones, select optional ones, but in addition, net impact metrics can be correlated to optional principal adverse impact indicators for the purposes of do no significant harm assessment. We know that some of our clients are using it this way as well. So it's not only about the principal adverse impact indicators when we are talking about the do no significant harm criteria. Then lastly, requirement to report taxonomy alignment. The help here is to in two steps, basically. First is to provide the indicative taxonomy alignment to help plan the asset allocation, the investment process. And then we gather the as disclosed alignment values from companies when the disclosures become available. So you can actually meet the requirement to meet the taxonomy alignment reporting requirement. So the point of this slide was to just sum up what we with Tuukka just showed about the different data available and how you can actually use it to meet the regulatory requirements. Great. That's on the fund demo and kind of wrapping up on the regulatory side. If there's no additional questions, or I don't know if you, Annu, had something funny to say in the meantime, but I was moving into the wrapping up section.
I always have jokes in my mind, but maybe your wrap up is now more timely. Maybe a couple of words. I actually don't know what were all the things you want to say in wrap up, but I think well, please go first, and then I will just add on that.
Yeah, well, not really much to wrap up on. I can leave you a small time slot at the end. But in essence, for all of you participants, you know that the modeling work has been going on for a while now. We have already booked some of the final delivery sessions for some of your participants already. And then secondly, we have our last session coming up in a bit more than 3 weeks, the closing seminar, and we are preparing something good for this session. So please mark it in your calendars already now. I will be sending out the calendar invites soon, but there are some surprises and I expect a large group of people joining the session already at this point. I don't know if you, Annu, had something in mind regarding that upcoming session or something else, but I didn't really have anything else to add at this point.
Right. Well, I was just about to give a little bit of a teaser for that. So as you've been seeing throughout the fall, we are basically, what we're showing to you are basically like expansions to our model, expansions that we have built because of the EU regulatory requirements to make sure that we are actually building the 21st century impact platform that investors and companies can use and get all of their impact needs catered for in one platform when it comes to data and things you can do with software, basically. With this, and this fall has also been for us a really exciting time to learn what are the use cases investors have, what are the use cases companies have. And in this session in 3 weeks, you're really happy to give you a bit of a sneak peek and tell you a little bit about what's coming, because this fall has also given us at Upright an idea and an even more clarified vision of how we think the leading investors and companies will be reporting and measuring and analyzing their impact in the coming years. And we have a new product launch coming for that, building on this platform that we are using and demoing for you today. So really hope you all can join in 3 weeks, and look forward to being able to share those plans with you guys as our sort of, you get a bit of a sneak peek because that will be published later. But we want to share with you, our dear clients and users of the data, something a bit in advance. But before that, we're going to grant you an extra coffee break before your next meeting. So we're going to wrap up about a bit more than 10 minutes earlier today, because Tuukka and Toni were so efficient in their demos today. So thanks a lot for joining once again. Keep sending your questions that you have on mind. We still have some slots in the closing seminar to address those. And of course, really look forward to seeing all of you in 3 weeks to see some of the summarized data of this fall, and of course, share the news of what's coming next. So thanks everybody, and please try to survive through November and see you on the bright side in December. Can you say that? It's even darker then. But anyways, at least Christmas is coming then. So look forward to seeing you guys, and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.